Okay, let's do this. I feel it's only been about a day since I did the last one, but I will say that I'm gonna pull this in a little bit here. Maybe this is better. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. Let's see, what do I look like? Um, yeah, but so I'm doing my own like practice here with Harinama and in this, it's like that, and so I wanna just kind of bring this up as, like, a prompt for anyone who's doing this, which is that it can go really deep, and when it's going really deep, it's very personal, and so I don't share things on here about that because they're mine, and things that you're going through are yours, and when it feels like there and this is something that we'll actually talk about a bit in chapter 12 when it comes to ideation, sort of talk about it, is that there's a knowing of when something that's arising is really, like, yours, and so some of it is that to try to transfer it into an explanation is going to disseminate some of the magic. That's not what I'm actually talking about totally right now, but there's also where something is still, um, like, integrating and raw, and so one of the things about talking about it is that, for me, like, my rule is that I don't bring things forward, unless I think in this context, unless I think it's helpful for other people, and also that I could talk about, where it's been like, where the, like, emotional activation of it has been, like, sort of dissipated and the integration from the experience of doing this has settled in. So, why do I bring this up? I bring this up because, for some folks who will so this is I mean, this here, we are doing the companion to reading the Parinama method here. And the reason I bring this up is that folks will, be reading, be watching these, and need a break, or they'll stop for a while, or and there's kind of like this confession where they're like, it's like, and I think it's an important part of a process like this that is has the potential to be at the magnitude that it is. Um, to actually be allowed to ebb and flow in and out. My own process took decades as far as, like, when I would lean really in, and then I'd have that experience that it's actually written about earlier in the book, and not as a personal experience, but that it's like there's kind of a recoil. So it's like an expansion, a recoil, and then an integration. And that can actually happen, in terms of personal insights, like for people who are in like therapy, or people who are doing yoga, or people who are doing any kind of self-exploration, is that it's like you kind of, it's like it expands, and it's kind of like, wow. Um, and then there's sort of a return, and sometimes it can feel like it's actually, um like, going backwards, being in a position that being, like, sort of at a level of consciousness or whatever that's, like, kind of lower than what it was before, but it's like and then it's like the, elastic, when you stretch it out, and then it's, like, looser. It's like underwear elastic. Um, that's an example of that. So, okay, so I feel very different right now. That's something I will say. I feel very altered. So my process is like, and so I think it is worthwhile to talk about this, um, because a lot of people feel alone in going through this, because it is a very personal thing, like to do like work or whatever, like that's transformative. Um, but I feel I feel different. Like it's kind of like altered. Yeah, yeah. And it's very common, and, people talk about this in a lot of different ways. They use analogies like, and this will happen over and over again. So it's not like it happens once, because you get this where people have, like, a big breakthrough and they're like, "I broke through," and it's like, "Yeah, no, this is actually part of the thing. You just kinda keep breaking through, keep breaking." So if you like it, hey, it's for you. Um, but yeah, I mean, this particular one, I feel very altered, and so it was interesting to even come to do this and feel like I don't really have, like, the comfort level as, like, whatever previous iteration of me existed, which, I get it. I can hear it with multiple ears. Okay, so today we're gonna read about we're in the sixth hub, which is, vision, and we're in the techniques and exercises. So, ideation and dreams, and then curiosity and looking. We're gonna do a little exercise too. About to sneeze. I probably should put the microphone on mute. If there's a second one, I'll do that for you. Sorry about that. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Dreams. Yeah. Okay. So earlier in these readings, I talked a bit about dreams when mine were really kicking up as I was activating this. Um, yeah. But so one of the things about ideation and dreams for this hub is that, there's kind of that thing which is like, like to see something, like seeing is believing kind of thing. But the issue with that is that, like, seeing is believing. When we were talking earlier about the developing a library of, like, images and experiences and sort of expanding the catalog through exposure to new things. Um, Dreams have a way of like showing things that are hard to see, like visual representation. And one thing that just popped into my head is, if Carl Sagan's book Contact, which, by the way, is, like, extraordinarily beautiful. I really recommend reading it. I read it, like, in the paper eyeball reading. Um, the movie is like an adaptation of the book. It's an extraordinary book. And one of the things that's in the book is that when the aliens make contact with the protagonist, the lead character in the movie, played by Jodie Foster, they present as the person that it's like I think for Jodie Foster, it's her departed father, who is like the person that she loved the most in the world, and that and so I don't know if that ruins something. Shit. Okay, sorry. Forget. Erase the tape. But maybe if you've seen, I don't know, whatever. Sorry. But the thing is the idea that things will be presented in a way that can be received in the way that they're intended to be received. And there's a thing about dreams, which is like, where folks will be like, well, what did that mean? And they'll, like, ask people, but it's like, and so it's the exploration into that, of allowing time with it. And that's one of the things where it's like, okay, I just had a dream about insert here, and being like, I'm gonna start looking it up. If anything, you wanna just sit with it, and because there's, like, more can come through, and then with those feelings, it can be like, "Oh, that's the thing. This is trying to be shown to me." And then, very much a la Sixth Hub, it's like, what do I feel like I'm really ready to see, right? And that's kind of part of the whole thing. Symbols are a big part of this hub. For whatever reason, I did not lean into mythology and symbolism, which are a big part of this. It's realizing that now. For example, yesterday I came home and on the pillar in front of my gate, there was a big old hawk sitting there. And yeah, so symbols. It's never happened before. It was really like an astonishing moment. And I understood, and I connected with what the meaning of that was. I connected to it, which is part of my own kind of, the thing I'm talking about, like my personal process. So, okay, let's talk about ideation and dreams. So we're on page 240. So everyone dreams. It's a matter of remembering them. As our conscious mind sleeps, a door is opened into the subconscious, allowing for a visual, emotional tour of what's occurring within us. We can see how past events have affected us. Although the message is communicated in symbol and emotion, dreams also help us process events. We can see ideas and visions through a mashup of visualization and emotion using our inner library and an archive of feelings and emotions from our experience. Yeah, it's really one thing I will say, like one note I'll make on this is that the connection between emotion, the second hub, and this hub, there's like a super highway between them about feeling. And so actually, I will speak to this, which is that part of not seeing is about feeling what it's like to see it. So the capacity developed in the second hub with emotion is what I'd almost call it necessary for expansion here, because qualities like being able to stay with incredibly difficult feelings without being absorbed into them, to feel like I've just made this my reality now. There's differentiation, which is to be able to have the feelings and they feel terrible and they feel intense without feeling like the absorption of one's consciousness into that feeling. That's an important thing. Um, there's also, oh, this is good actually. So right now with with the intensity of global events, you have folks who are recommending that you turn it off for your mental health. So that's a big thing, which is, and this is like, so under like I there's an importance about boundaries here, which is a thing. So that is a thing. This is nuanced. But like one of the things I want to point out here is that the idea of emotional capacity being kind of treated as a fixed notion, versus, like versus building and growing it. So, yes, if you are reaching beyond your capacity and your mental health is affected, absolutely healthy to create some boundaries around that. But the thing is that, that, and this is like from like kind of like spiritual people or conscious people saying, turn it off to save yourself. And like what I want to kind of point out in terms of this practice is that building the second hub is building the capacity to continue looking, to be able to handle like revolting, terrifying, sad feelings as you're watching things unfold, and hold space for it, build and build and build that capacity, and then see what is revealed about oneself as those feelings emerge. And yeah, that might be a little too nuanced for this forum, but I'll point to it. But and also with dreams, a lot of what dreams show are feelings, and so what I point to with that is also very like parinama, which is that it's surfacing things that don't have like a record, like in terms of like a stored information record, so words or um, so it's kind of like the image and the emotion being shown. So it's, so it has like kind of a more sort of personally ancient origin to like feel things and find where things, um, sometimes it's like finding the origins of certain behavior patterns and being able to just kind of hold space around that and go, oh yeah, that makes like, and just be really kind to that facet of oneself. But anyway, okay, where was I at? Uh, yeah, okay. So I discuss above that the best time to catch insights from dreams is when we're waking up. It helps to not move your body so much. So again, have a journal by your bed and write down what you can remember. Explore the messages and meaning. Consuming alcohol and cannabis suppresses dreams, so be aware of the trade-offs for what you may use to wind down at the end of the day. Also, write down your ideas as they arise throughout the day. So, if you already have a journal for general note taking, try putting a star next to every idea you have so that you can look back through the pages to see if patterns appear. They usually do. Before going to bed, think about where you seek clarity and state it to yourself. For example, like, how should I address this? Like, name a concern, or with a friend, or how do I solve insert the problem? Or you can take a mental walk through the previous day to allow for the events to be processed in your sleep. Allow and accept that the answers to those questions can come to you without effort if you become receptive. Um, so like speaking to this, so some of the things that have been coming through when I'm thinking about this section or writing this book. And for, folks who, just, I mean, if you like look at just the number of videos there are, I mean, you look at the sheer kind of girth and breadth of subject matter. And so when I was writing it, I was using this a lot, like this kind of thing about like super receptivity and just sort of allowing the kind of jet stream. And so, I mean, the thing is, like, there are periods of reading this where it's like the insights are like really, it's like, I read it and I'm like, oh my God, still. And still, I'm still affected by it because it's the same thing as kind of like this thing of like having downloads. So I used to have, like, I have books on books. I actually have some here on my desk, that I like this. And this here, so that's what it looks like. And here is actually this is the end of writing a book. And so what is in here is actually chapter 13, is how that was created. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Fun times. Yeah, and so let's see. Yeah. And the notes app on my phone, because I'd be walking down the street and it would be like boom, and I'd be like, oh my God, that. And I'd write it into the notes app. There's also, you can see sort of in the here in frame here, it's a large post-it note. It's on the back wall. And so I would, like, very, very common occurrences, I'd wake up at like 3 in the morning and it would be like it would be this kind of notion coming in, and I'd like start, I have like a lot of markers and I'd just start being like and write it out, and draw it out. It would be like coming through as sort of a visual thing. And it'd be like, wow. And then I go, and then I might work on it a little bit. And then I'd go back to bed. And then I would wake up kind of later in the morning and look at it and be like, wow, that's really good. And I think one of the parts of this that's worth mentioning is that the part that's worth mentioning is like how it's not a lot of work. It's the antithetical to like having to like really grind out the process of working on this stuff. That it sort of comes, it's like there's sort of a, I mean, there's the work the work of creation, it's like the ideation is sort of like this kinda like bloop, and then, sort of a rising thing, and then the actual work of landing it and shaping it and, like, bringing it into existence is, like, work. We'll talk about that in chapter 12. But yeah, so some of this is like very meta where I'm talking about like, okay, how is this happening? This thing that you're reading, like how is this created? And it's like, well, that on a million times over. There are boxes of notebooks and like there are reams of the post-it notes. My editor had said, yeah, you really want to keep it because some people are gonna be really curious about how this was created. So, yeah, so that exists. Another thing too, it's interesting because it's kind of winding up being about writing the book, which actually I haven't thought about until we're sitting here, is that so actually it fits for here, is that so in writing the book and just to be clear, it's not the first, I've like created like, like been a creator in other facets of my life, but in this particular instance of building this out that I didn't know how to do it, and I was very called to it. Like, I was almost I was resenting the strength of the call to do it, which is a whole other thing. Talk about some other time, but, um, so so I didn't know how to write a book, um, at all. So it was even, like, mechanical stuff of being on like what do I write this in? The first years of writing a book was in a Google Doc, which was like there's formatting things that are standard. There's like organizational principles about like how I didn't know any of that. And I didn't even really I spent a lot of time trying to figure out like how this gets structured because there's like this invisible sort of or semi-invisible, like, structural aspect of this, which is kind of in a lot of ways the whole sort of thing. It was like, how does this all fit together? How does this all fit together? And even like, what are the words to describe what things are? Um, like, like just kind of the things about like, yeah, interruptions and stressors, like even like that notion, like even the note, like just everything about how to like build it out. And then even in the thing about, like, how the book is organized, like, part 1 used to be 7 chapters, um, that were, like, all sort of like, "Hey, there's some good content here." But, yeah, I mean but so anyway, so one of the things about, like, the creation of it was and I also thought it was gonna take 3 months to do, and I wasn't a good writer. My writing was, like, really difficult to get through. Um, but so it's kind of like, okay, great story, cool story, bro. Um, but like part of the thing, so the thing here, and then I'm getting to this thing with like curiosity and looking, and the exercise that I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna invite you to join me, is about creating the space. So there came a point years in where it was like like I could just come and work. Like once I was working with my editor, um, there was just like a lot of work to do, and it was just really like work, 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 work all the time. But there was a time where it was like very ephemeral and liminal, where I even was doing a few. I took a few consulting engagements because I was so uncomfortable spending so much time. It's funny, that's changed, like, doing nothing and just kind of, like, trying to land something, like, there was no material outcome, it was just this kind of thing that was, like, existing in, like, theory, and I don't know if it was influencing me, if I don't think it was, but it could have been. Influencing me is the fact that it, like, seemed kind of really, 'cause I was, like, really uncomfortable spending so much time, like, there was no material outcome, it was just this kind of thing that was, like, existing in, like, theory, and I don't know if it was influencing me, if I don't think it was, but it could have been influencing me is the fact that it, like, was seemed kind of really crazy, and also, I guess maybe part of the thing would have been having some discomfort about, like, the lack of evidence. So it's kind of like, "What am I doing?" So there's this whole, "What am I doing?" Like, I'm just kind of spending all this time, like, I'm writing a book, and all I have are, like, a couple bizarro scraps of, pages in Google Docs, and when I send them to people, they kind of, like, politely they're like, "Cool." They'd be like, "Okay." It was like, yeah, I'd be like, "I'm gonna send you some pages to read," and people would, like, they'd be like and I'd be excited about them. I'd be like, "I think I've got something," but it was, like, totally out of context. It was, like, like, the earliest days, it just was, like, there were, like, ideas. So you can kinda see how that could exist here, where there's just a lot of ideas, and it's like, how does this all, like, what's the context here? It's kinda good. I haven't thought about this really ever, which is this period of time of creation that's, like, very ungrounded, and so I was, like, doing consulting gigs, and then the problem with that is the amount of energy it was taking me for me to work in a company and, like, help people build their shit was, like, I was like, "Okay, this doesn't work because now I'm, like, it's, like, really crowded out the ability to kinda stay in this. I mean, like, it's a pretty rarefied space to be able to, like, have that, right? And that is also something about writing this that I was like, well, and creating it was, like, also the sense that I was like, yeah, people it's unusual to be able to have this amount of sort of, like, the luxury of having this kind of space and time and being able to choose it. Like, that the only thing that's uncomfortable about it is it's uncomfortable. It's like that there but that idea that's like, okay, well, then it's like that the service of this is, like, making it easier for someone who doesn't. Who knows? Who the jury's out on whether this makes anything easier, but anyway, another so anyway, talking about, like, okay, well, what do you do? And, like, you don't know there's something you're supposed to do. It's like this sense, then it's like, I don't even know what it is. I don't know what it is. I kind of have a sense of what it is, but I don't know what it is. So I have to kind of, like, sit, and it's kinda like, you know what? I think it was, like, the '90s, there were these posters that were, like, these, like, dot matrixy things. It was, like, the hottest thing is, like, you'd have one of these on your wall, and the idea is that you stare at it until the image pops out. I never have seen that image in that, by the way. What happened to that? That just ended. I yeah, that just ended. But it would be like, "Oh, there's a sailboat," and you just sit there and you stare at the dots, and all of a sudden it's like apparently it, like, pops out this, like, I think, I don't know if you've seen it, tell me what it's like. Because I just sit there staring at it and just be like, "This is," and somebody would be like, "It's a boat," and I'd be like, "Yeah, it's a boat. Help." So, anyway, it's kind of there's a bit of that, and it's kind of just like, am I just staring, and there's the thing about doubt too, is it's like, am I just staring at a bunch of dots? And so even in terms of the own, like, kind of one's own fortitude, there's kind of there's a lot in terms of, like, the transformation. Once again, chapter 12, we're gonna get into this, in practical ways to manage this stuff in terms of creation, is there's this kind of thing that's happening, which is like having the fortitude to stay in this, like, very particular state, with certainty when there's, like, nothing there. So that part is, as far as creation, is that it's like it's super amorphous. There's nothing actually being created, and it's like creating space for it. So we're going to talk about this exercise, which is like, okay, what do you do? Um, so it's curiosity and looking. And so the point about, like, writing the book is that one of the things I would do is I would just sit down and I'd be like, this time period, I just is for this. And it wasn't it's like a time period, it's like, this is for this. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's really uncomfortable. I really I really hate it. Um, I don't yeah, it's really kinda cool to kinda, like, remember that, because it was, like, to have, like, nothing. And also in the context now remembering is, like, I'd been an executive, I'd walked away from everything that was, like, conventional to be like, "Here, I'm just gonna sit and stare at the dots," so there is a bit of fortitude involved in this. That was the struggle for me, like, hence, going and working in a couple companies and helping them build stuff just because I was like, "How do you who just sits here and meditates and does this process?" I mean, it's unsettling. It's unsettling because nobody else is doing it, I can assure you. Um, yeah, 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 and this is where, like, the great creation of a life happens, is that you're, like, pulling something in that's, like, sort of just a little it's, like, beyond. So what I would do is I'd, like, take the time and I just sit, and so I'd try to show up with some level of enthusiasm, and I'd open up my dinky little Google Doc, aka manuscript, that had no chapters. Or actually chapter 4 was chapter 1, which actually, like, funny story, or it's not funny, but it's just when the, proofreader, who was, like, proofreader to the stars, I got this incredible proofreader, Haley, um who, like, does all this stuff for these, like, executives in Hollywood and stuff, and she was like, "Look, I'm kinda willing to do yours for a couple of reasons," and I won't get into that because it's too much TMI, but, she said, "Well, here's the thing, just send me something from sort of, like, into the book a little bit into." And her thing was, she's like, "Look, you ask for that because it's usually the most finished, because the front of the book is where people put the most effort, and then it kinda drops off in the middle. So if I see that, I get an idea of what I'm in for, and I send her stuff from chapter 4. I didn't know look, in all fairness, I didn't know that was her strategy, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll send you something from." And then she later told me, she's like, "Yeah, it was in great shape." And it was like, "Yeah, okay." The part of the book I worked on the most, truly. But anyway, so I would just sit there and I'd, like, write, and then I'd be like yeah, yeah, it was really a mess. It was a hot mess, and, it was a hot mess, and I, like, missed my old life. I missed my old life. There's one thing. Actually, I'll spend a little time in this space. So, I was asked to speak for Babson University, like, do some kind of, like, um, talk about enterprise selling, like, selling big, large, um, business development deals. And which is, like, the dumbest thing to give, like, a 45-minute talk on. It's a terrible topic. Um, but anyway, so I gave this talk, and I remember it made me so sad because it made me, like, miss that world. And it made me miss all the things about, like, the sense of security that it had for me in terms of being, like, a person who knew what they like, who was in the position to talk to an audience about it. Like, I just was so like, that kind of thing about being like, now I'm just sitting staring at dots and doing nothing and, like, building this thing that has no form, or I have no idea what it is. And there was this I live where I live, there's, like, a bunch of outdoor cafes and things on Newbury Street, and I remember I went out for a walk because there was this kind of sense of sadness of, like, and I remember, like, I walked by a cafe where people were just sort of chattering and having fun, and I remember, like, I was like, "I feel like I'm a ghost who's walking through their old life and missing it, wishing I could have it back, because I wanted it back." So I think I made a little bit of an allusion to the fact I resented that this was happening to me, that there was this internal pressure to do this. So, yeah. So how did I spend this, how to spend this time, not how did I, like, how to spend this time. So one of the things is like landing in it. And so this exercise is on page 241. And I used to post these on social media um, for the exercise. I'd take it. I'm just going to do it with a pen. You just need a piece of paper. But anyway, so one of the things is just like sitting down and like drawing in my senses. Because that was another problem. It's like not only did I not know what I was doing, I was like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah," and so it was like, okay, I need to kind of like center in here for whatever reason that felt like the thing to do. And God, it's so nuts. Like I think about it and I can really see why it was so uncomfortable for people at the time still. But like it was uncomfortable for me because it was like such a strange thing to do. And my old life had been kind of like great. If I hadn't had that kind of existential kind of sensibility in it, like that was the only thing that was wrong with it, is that there was this sense that there was something else I had to do. That other than that, it was great. I lived a fucking great life. Other than that lingering sense of tension that followed me everywhere and wouldn't allow me to fully like enjoy it. Other than that, no complaints. The truly though, truly though. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so oh gosh, I'll do one more. So one of the things is like when this was coming up, it was this tension. It was like there's this thing. Even when I talked to my boss who'd been the CEO of the last company I'd been at, I was like, "Look, I really have to go." And he's like, "To do what?" I'm like, "I don't know." I mean, God damn it. Like who's are you kidding me? And so and I didn't know, and it was like that also was a thing that's like, this sucks. This feels like if I was a little bit more insecure, I'd probably think I was going crazy. I didn't think I was going crazy. I actually felt very sane. Um, because it was like it was like creating that kite feeling of like it felt like it's like okay, it's like doing the right thing. I could feel it every time I went off of doing this. It was like it would lose that sort of sense of integrity. So it was like following that. But it's kind of yeah, I'll tell the story. I'm in too deep now. But I would, after my yoga practice, I would meditate. And it wasn't like anything like, oh my God, like, wow. It was just like, I would just sit, in, maybe even in Shavasana, but like I would sit. It was actually when I'd sit upward. And so every day I'd be like, okay, how do I best serve you? God, universe. It's like, so, okay, here I am offering myself. How do I best serve you? Like, what is the thing here? And one day it was like, you have to give up everything you're attached to. I was like, and it was like one of those things, the kite, it was like the high integrity. And it was like, God, yeah. Where it's like, oh, it's really blissful. And you just sort of like, sort of, like it's like, hell no. I was like, more, I have to give up more. And the answer was absolutely yes. But anyway, the story time on that will end right now. We can, if open to, if there's any curiosity about what happened next. Sure. But I'll assume there isn't any. I hope there isn't any or whatever. Okay, so one of the things was just drawing the senses inward. And yeah. So so curiosity and looking. So there's perhaps no better way to sharpen the capacity to see things than to draw them. Boopity boop. Here we go. So drawing something increases our level of attention, making us better observers. Don't worry about skill level. This is a sketch. When we try to draw something, we pay attention to how it exists in its environment, how the light affects it, the facets, the details of the object. Sketching brings our attention to details and provides enough activity to help tune out distractions. So in the morning, it can clear the lens of our mind and enhance focus for the rest of the day. So one of the things about like sketching too is that like like, you literally have to just be, like, looking. So it, like, it's like does a natural, like, focus. And so and creates, like, kind of, like, a certain amount of peace. So what I would do is I'll show you. We're gonna Alright, okay. So here's it's the exercise is called Quick Draw 8, and really all you need is this and a pen. And there can be the temptation to be like, this exer if you wanna sketch, go nuts, but this particular exercise has, like, the time constraint of it is really important, um, for a couple of reasons. Number of reasons, couple of reasons. But so it takes only a few minutes to shift from scattered to focused. So a great way to do this is the quick draw 8. I don't know why it's I've turned that into a thing apparently. The quick draw 8. I made that up. I love how I'm like turn it into this like all like caps or capitalized proper noun thing. Okay, start with paper and a pen or pencil. I'm intentionally choosing some simplicity here. Pick an object like a plant, a decorative item, or a piece of fruit. Of course, something natural is ideal, but any simple object works. Set a timer to 8 minutes and draw without interruption. When the time is up, stop and get a sense of how your focus is shifted. So, this will be like supremely boring. Maybe I'll just do it for like 2 minutes. We'll do a quick draw 2 because I think it'd be, like, boring to watch if you're not here to timer. So oh, here we go. Okay, so here's what I would do. What I will do. On my phone, I would time this because the we're actually trying to create a little bit of tension here. Because it's like, I have all the time in the world to draw this, and also, like, this is a, like, householder style practice where we're not trying to, like, absorb, like, we're actually trying to create some, like, tension and, like, create attention, like, sharpen the attention. So, the timing is really key here. So, I'm just gonna do it for 2 minutes. So, I have my pen, and I'll talk through it. I won't do it, like, the full on. Because if you're doing it, you just put the timer on, pick your object, and then you, like, roll with it. And then you stop as soon as the timer is and wherever it's at. So here, I'm gonna draw the microphone, and I'm gonna talk about what's happening when I'm doing it. So start. Here we go. Now, the first thing is I'm looking at the microphone. Um, I'm looking at my paper, I'm figuring out, like, how much space I have here. And I'm gonna, like, sort of sketch the overall. I should probably show this to you, but I'm just gonna still be boring. But here we go. And it's noticing so already sketching, like, the outline of what it is. So I'm already, like, noticing details I normally would never pay attention to. Like, when you look at something, just kind of clocking it, you're not trying to figure out how to replicate it. And in replicating it, it's kind of like, "Oh, that's kinda cool." There's kinda something that happens where you have to pay this different kind of attention to it. Um, so and even just, like, spatial details. Yeah, the looking I'm already looking. And how much time do I have left? I have 53 seconds. I've gotta pick up the pace here. So here we go. Going through. If this is higher production value, I would have a camera over this to show you. Yeah, perspective is, like, kinda seeing that that's not gonna, like, totally work itself out. But, like, one of the things that's fun about it is to just see the detail. Like, I'm noticing, like, because the microphone, it's like it's put together, so it's, like, seeing, like, where the different parts of it are. And then kind of if there's more time, it's like kind of looking into the shading. So the first thing is like it's like I've gone through the kind of general shape of it. Oh, I have to stop. Stop time. Okay, we reached our limit. So I'm gonna tell you. So the thing is, I've done the shape, and then it's kind of looking at like facets, like how light is hitting it, and beginning to try to kind of capture some of that. And then it's like even just noticing. It's like okay, the sheen on here, the front has light, and the back is dark, and there's like shadow from the stand that like directs it. And so it's just like it's like this kind of focusing in just naturally creates. So look, I'll show you what I have. Tell me if you think we've got a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being amazing and 1 being excellent. Just kidding. But so, okay. And so one of the things I can even while I was doing it on like where there was, I'm talking through it and it was a shorter version, I can even feel like it's just the thing is like starting to notice something, like to re-notice something. Yeah, give it a shot. It's really easy. All you need is a piece of paper, a pencil, and a timer. And it's not really about like the thing of like, oh, this is so crappy. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. It's just noticing. It's just the noticing about like the thing that's like the focus is that it's cool, like that it's like really kind of extraordinary to notice. Like the quality of the drawing is like, I don't know, even if this was great, like who cares? Who gives a shit? I mean, so see, it's like tempting now. You just want to keep going. But yeah. Yeah. And then you can, if yeah, it's kind of, you can have your little, do it however you want. But it is a good way if you're kind of like crunched if you're feeling super scattered, um, to like draw in senses. And that's something, and it's just something I would do to be like in the creation process. So ideation dreams, talking about that type of receptivity to like bringing in um new ideas, asking questions. So something that is very very I talk about this won't be the first time I brought this up, but one of the things about ideation is that is like end the whole idea that I actually know how to do this and I'm not doing it. Like that's the fucking death. Like stop, end of, over. Like it's not, it's this kind of thing that's like, yeah, I know how to lose weight. It's eat less and exercise, but I don't do it because I'm an asshole. Oh, I know how to like paint something, but I'm just not doing it. It's like, no, like you don't know how. Like that's the way that doesn't work. Like that's an idea. Like part of the thing about ideation is asking the question and not interfering with it, not being like, I'm asking a question that I already know the answer to because I want to appear smart, or I'm asking a question I already know the answer to because I'm trying to like protect my reality. And the thing is being and like watch how that reflex to answer this open question of like, how do I do this? Like that something comes start, like idea, this kind of like, well, you just have to, like, it's like, no, it's like just to really get into like, I don't know how to do this. It's like kind of like humble before God in a sense. Like it's like you're consulting God is like, and like, would you go to God and be like, okay, so how am I supposed to lose weight? Actually know what it is. I'm supposed to like, drink only green juice and do calisthenics for, you know, 2 hours a day, like whatever that is. It's really this kind of surrender of like not knowing. And so in that, it's like how, so a good example is the one I actually just used earlier, which was like, okay, how do I serve you? What am I like? What is this thing? This is before I even knew it was like a book. It was like, how do I best serve you? And it's like being receptive to what's going to come in. and realizing it will be foreign. Very often it will be foreign. There'll be a sense, like, where people talk about getting downloads. There's this sense of this, like, newness to it and this quality of it being, like, surprising. So, like, removing the, like, I already know and allowing in the, like, I have no clue and I'm gonna be really receptive to hearing. And then it comes when it comes. And so, like, the sleeping part, great for this because asking and then sort of, like, waking up either in the middle of the night is, like, in my experience, incredibly, like, reliable that that's gonna happen. Or in the morning, waking up and there's that kind of, like, buzzy place where if you move yourself out of it, if you go into your phone, you'll cut it off. Sometimes it'll still try to break through, but like, the connection to it will be, like, kind of, dissipated a bit. But so that kind of thing. So ideation, dreams, curiosity, and looking, I think I went, like, kind of into talking about something I'd totally forgotten about, oddly enough, which was this process that's in this, like, looking. There's a book, and it didn't make it into the final manuscript here. I used to give this so I used to do some book clubs with my teams, where we'd read a book and then we'd discuss it. And one of them was a book called On Looking, and I'm gonna butcher this. I don't it might maybe I'm spoiler alerting it, but a woman wrote a book about walking a city block with, like, 8 different professionals. Like, one was pest control, one was a botanist, one was, like, garbage person, like, architect, and every person had this different block that they saw. And so they'd be like, "Well, here's where all the, that's where the rats go," or people like, "Here's the botany, here's how the trees," and this idea that it's like this idea of, like, looking with curiosity and openness to new perspectives. Yeah, that's a thing. Okay, I think that's it for today. Tomorrow's reading is Assuming Positive Intent. This is actually so central to Parinama method, and I am going to imagine already ahead of time here that my perspective, my sensibility on this has actually expanded. But hopefully, I write about assuming positive intent for yourself, which is like the whole thing. Yeah. But anyway, and this has to do with, like, perception. Talking about perception, talking about looking, talking about creating space, trying to, like, this is like creation, like creating in the ideation part of it. It's almost like before the work. And this is another spoiler for chapter 12, which is going backwards, which is like the inquiry, the, like, envisioning, then the being able to put it to words and start to create it. Then it's like enrolling people, like, for me, my editor, like, bringing in the right people that are gonna support the aspects of it that earlier on, like, might lead to insecurity if you're coming in with inquiry that's like, "I'm gonna have to do everything." It's like, you're not. And the magnet of this kind of thing, of, like, creation, will draw folks in, especially when it's coming from, like, a high level of integrity. And then there's, like, really, like, the work and the kind of like, doing the work. And then there's this aspect of resonance, of trying to create something that actually resonates with yourself emotionally and others. And then it's like really landing it and, like, landing the sort of like the physical manifestation of the thing in the practical world. So, okay. So thank you for watching. I do truly love you, and I am so grateful to be, to even just be in the place to be able to talk about this. Um, and even the thing which was, after I wrote the book, that I didn't fully understand how to do it or what it was, and now that that's also something that's coming through. not in the order that I would have guessed. And that was something that I did struggle with, was being like, I know that I have this thing now, and I don't know how to tell people to do it. It was like a underlying insecurity, which was like, okay, kind of do your thing with it. Like there's a number of different ways. And now that I'm actually doing it this way, I'm like, oh, I get it now. And that seems like one of those things like that you'd be like, wow, how on earth could that be the way? I mean, aren't you supposed to like write the book after right? I mean, let's face it, right? That's the prescribed order of operations. So once again, it's receptivity to new ways, um new information, new perspectives, and being able to stay open. And okay, so thank you. And so any questions, any like dissent, anything where you're like, that seems ridiculous, anything you're like, this really resonates and is really fantastic for me, or this is my experience with something. I love hearing from people. This is like, yeah, I love it. I love it. I really love when somebody can bring like a new sort of view on something, where it's like, yeah, well, this is also kind of a thing. And it's like, yeah, that's very cool. And I've said it before, if you don't have my contact information, if you don't know me yet, that you can just DM me on the Parinama Method on Instagram. I respond to those for the most part, even when they're weird. I don't care. Do your thing. Do your thing. And yeah, and any interaction with this, it just means a lot to me. It really, I will say that, yeah, because this is from the heart, because this has this particular quality to it. Like any likes or comments, it's different than social media to me. It's different than the thing of like, you know, it's like there's a deeper connection to me in it, of feeling that kind of like any type of like connection in that way. It's like really means a lot. And so I'm really grateful. Special shout out to Mira, special shout out to Kristen. Folks who have consistently been kind of like showing up and interacting. So if you interact, you get a shout out too. So there's that. That's it, if that's matters. So anyway, if you remember those dot paintings that you stared into, if you were one of the people that could actually see them, please tell me what you saw. Please help me know. I was not one of the chosen people for those. So anyway, I will let you go. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, and until then, I'm sending you just so much love. So much love. Okay. Bye for now.